system every 20, 30 years. Just look at Argentina. The third scenario, of course, would be improvements. But how to improve? Politicians are speaking still exactly the same neoliberal language of direct foreign investments and so on, that they are basically managing to get by giving enormous concessions, even subventions, like they do in Serbia, for all foreign firms coming here. So basically, this is what is called this Latin American model. You have an oligarchy in power. They control through the repressive system the population gets exploited, and those who can leave, they leave. So obviously, imagine what's happened in 20 or 30 years time. But let's speak about the improvements for the conclusion, or something that we hope for. It has to deal with investments into social reproduction. And social reproduction obviously is not GDP, is not that some people will get filthy rich and you might get some crumbles from the table. Improvements in social reproduction means improving social life of your population, building hospital, kindergartens, schools, and providing a decent and dignified life for people who happen to be born here or who happen to come to live here. And this is exactly what most of people would prefer, not being rich in your countries, but simply have a possibility to lead a dignified and decent life in your country, and of course to feel that actually there is a perspective for you and your children. Obviously, that's a minimal social program we would need in the Balkans if we are ever to imagine a better future. Thank you for now.
Thank you,
Igor, for your brilliant presentation. Let me just add let me just make a small comment on what you said about commercialization of education. It is, of course, in relation to the students' movement in Croatia, it is, of course, the commercialization when you make university. To enter university, you have to pay an amount of money which is that would be inaccessible to most of the population. But there is also, I would say, another aspect which is important with respect to the commercialization of your education. What is called market-oriented education, and on the reasoning that the education should be market-oriented, the humanities are obliterated and lose their specific weight in the education. They become second-hand, and they don't. They are not evaluated and don't have prestige. Now, before leave the floor to Professor Tanja Miščević, I would ask our host to play a small video. Please. A video that was provided kindly to us by Western Balkans Youth Lab. I think it is a bit longer, right? The video. Thank you. Now I would leave the floor to Professor Tanja Miščević. As I said, she's Deputy Secretary General of Regional Cooperation Council. She is professor at the University of Belgrade, professor of political science, and also she has contributed and participated importantly in the process of negotiations for the integration of Serbia into the European Union. Please, Professor Miščević.
Thank you very much. I hope that you can hear me, as I had a lot of problems to connect. Deep apologies to all of you for being a little bit late, especially to Professor Štiks, was not there at the beginning of your speech, but I got it and completely agree with you. And you just had the opportunity to see a small video of the Western Balkan Youth Policy Lab, which actually gave you some of the data that I wanted to also to start picking on what Professor Štiks actually was speaking about, putting everything in larger environments, so both economically, socially, economically, but also politically in terms of the developing the states or the national authorities in the region that we are living in. So my job now is to continue talking about this, putting the emphasis on trying to find the answer why actually the situation is like this. So let me repeat some of the data that you saw on that video because they are frightening. 2 million young people are ready to leave immediately from the Western Balkan region. That's a huge number. And that is something that the Western Balkan, the region that we are living in, cannot survive. It's not the issue of their decision to leave, but actually to be pushed by somebody because of the wars, atrocities, and everything else, but because their feeling of not having a secure, safe, and normal life, let's call it like this, a normal life in the region that they are living in. Let me give you additional numbers. Why I think that this should be also frightening, not only for you, young people, us, your teachers, professors, but also to the states. And this is a huge loss for them. They are, together with your parents, they're investing a huge amount of money in your education, health, and everything else. So the cost of that type of migration amount up to be 2.5 billion euro per year. But it's a spooky. It's a really really something that should be considered very heavily by the governments, and they are doing that. Second part of my some of my parts of my speech will actually be dedicated what has been done up to now to give us some rooms for thinking optimistically in terms where we can find a better place for all of you, for you young people living here and today, not in the future, in the Western Balkan as a region. So what is the major problem? The major problem for sure is the non-employment rate. The unemployment rate here is twice as high as it is in the European Union.